Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for coming and joining us today. My name is Jonathan Benet, Employee Benefits Advisor here at C3. I'm joined by my counterpart, Brian Cox, PNC Advisor, also at C3. So welcome and good morning to C3's Creating a Safer Workplace seminar. We're very happy to have you here. We are going to start off talking about the news, so I know it's going to be down a little bit, but we're going to bring you back up later, okay? We have a great event with amazing panelists that are joining us from amazing companies that are doing amazing things for employers across the country to make their workplaces safer. And we also have an amazing panelist from an insurance carrier that's going to give us that side of the conversation as well. So I want to start with our why, right? Why this topic? Why are we asking you to come here to learn about this, right? Turn on the news. Right? You turn on the news, you look on your phone. Unfortunately, we're seeing shootings, people getting run over, all types of violent incidences happening in places of education, places where we go shopping, places where we go to watch the Super Bowl, places where we go to see the doctor, and places where our significant others go to work and where we go to work every day. So unfortunately, we're finding ourselves in this new, I don't want to call it normal because it's not, but we're finding ourselves in this new society where we have to, in our opinion, refocus on safety and making our places of work and places where we travel and places where we purchase goods safer for ourselves, our loved ones, and for our employees. So we started with that. We coupled it with, well, California legislation, SB 553, proves that or confirms that this is a pertinent topic, right? And so they're requiring employers in California to not only do training, which is the misnomer that that's all it is, it's a lot more, work prevention plan, and our fine panelists will go over all that with you today. But then we tie that all back together with company culture, right? If your company culture revolves around or a main pillar of it is safety, then you are showing, you're delivering a message that you care about your employees, you care about their family members, you want them to go home to their family, and that message of care resonates. I mean, we're in a labor shortage right now. I mean, we're in a labor market where it's hard to find good talent. Not only to find them, get them trained, bring them in, but then keep them, right? So if we can build a culture around safety, then you're sending that message that you care, and now you're a different kind of employer. You're an employer that people want to look for a job there. You're an employer where people want to stay there for a long time and be loyal to you because they know you care about them. And at some point, it's reciprocal. They care about you too, right? If something were to happen in the office to anyone, regardless of title. So that's our why. We hope that our why for putting this together resonates with your why for being here today. And again, thank you, and I can't wait to introduce our fine panelists here. Brian?
Well, I think Jonathan nailed it. Like he mentioned, we all want everyone that we love and care about to be safe no matter where it is. This goes beyond just the insurance world, right? So I think we dealt with putting this in place last year when the, requirements came out for being in compliance. Sent our insureds and our clients like, okay, here's how you comply. We want to go farther than that, just not comply with what the state's requiring, but just to make sure our, clients and people that we love and work with, that they're going ahead of the game, right? They're being best operators. So the things that these guys are going to be able to talk about today will put you in that next level of just not complying with the law, but doing everything you can to really, really make sure everybody's safe at your workplace. So.
Thank you, Brian. And I did want to highlight and shout out our partner, Coastal Payroll. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Kevin. If anybody has questions about payroll or needs to talk about payroll, Kevin is amazing. So next, we're going to dive in, introduce our panelists, And then after we do introductions, we're going to have them come up one by one, present. Then we got some layup questions for them. And then we're going to set them loose to you guys. So we want this to be interactive. We want this to be conversational. We want you guys to walk out of this with you got your why answered today. and walk away with some awesome resources. So without further ado, I'll start by introducing, we have Zechari Tempesta from Lightship Neuroscience. We have Aakash Shah from Gabriel Protects. And we have David Sobel from the Sobel Group. And then we have Kyle Rolf joining us virtually. He's here. He can hear us. He's on baby watch, so wife didn't let him go 2 hours away from home. So we're very grateful that Kyle's here today. So thank you, Kyle. Thank you to our fine panelists. So first, I'd like to bring up Zechari Tempesta from Lightship Neuroscience. Please welcome Zechari.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Of course. So I'm Zechari. I'm one of the co-founders at Lightship, and we're just down the street, just 5 minutes away. And what we're doing is we're creating the neuroscience of safe driving. And neuroscience is a little bit of a fancy word, but it's really related to everything that we do every day. We're focused in the transportation business. We work with fleets. In the transportation business, we're essentially in the human business. So today we're actually talking about cognitive neuroscience, which has everything to do with cognition. You know, we go to the grocery store, we pay attention to things, we get distracted, we make financial decisions. This is happening amongst us every day. So this is a relatable topic, and it is relevant because neuroscience is used to understand individuals across domains, especially in high-performance sectors. So the formatting's off just a little bit. But it's used in the commercial airline industry to understand pilots and air traffic controllers. The military uses it. NASA uses it to understand astronaut performance. It's used on the International Space Station. And at Lightship, we're using it to understand drivers specifically at a deeper level. So just a little bit about our backstory. Our story actually started in the labs at UCSF and UC Berkeley in the Bay Area. It matured in healthcare research. We've done some work with the NIH and blossomed in Major League Baseball. I'm not sure if you guys are baseball fans, but spring training is coming up. And if you haven't seen this movie and best-selling book, Moneyball, it's a great story about the data science revolution that happened in Major League Baseball in the early 2000s. And essentially what we did in about 2007 and 2008, we introduced a new type of data, neuroscience-based data, to help players forecast player talent and train them up once they're in their system. I'd love to talk more about this, but essentially this new type of data helped us understand people and players at a different level. And in 2020, we started Lightship to understand drivers at a deeper level, on the individual basis of their talents. And you might be surprised to learn that more than 70% of collisions are caused by poor neurocognitive performance. This was a study done by NHTSA a few years ago, and 70% is just a massive number. If you want a relatable number to that, it's like the amount of people in the United States who like hot dogs, you know? So lots of people like hot dogs. Same number, 70%, is the number of people in the United States who are under 65, or males who are under 6 feet. So that's a large number. When you get to intersections, that number jumps up to 85%. 85% of performance errors that lead to collisions are caused by poor neurocognitive performance. So it's an area as an industry that we should definitely pay attention to. So what we think drivers see normally is the same thing individual by individual, but actually each individual looks at a traffic scene and interprets information slightly differently. So it's important for us to understand our workforce at the individual level because they have individual talents. The reality is there's differences. Not necessarily a good or bad thing all the time, but there's differences amongst each individual. So what we're doing at Lightship specifically is we're taking a gamified approach and using neuroscience to understand drivers. So what we've done is and I'll show you what this looks like. Hopefully the videos all work. is we're taking forward-facing dash camera footage and actually packaging it into a gamified format. So the drivers are what feels like playing like an educational video game that's built with their own forward-facing footage. But behind the scenes, we're looking at key characteristics for high cognitive performance on the road that will keep them safe. So we're looking at things like, how are they making decisions? What is their distractibility levels? Are they recognizing and anticipating hazards? What is their risk perception? Is this situation getting more dangerous? Is it safe? We do got a little video. So essentially, Samsara is a very prominent dashcam platform, and what we do is we go into your own platform and we pull this forward-facing footage, find great scenarios of things that are happening on the road, and gamify it for our drivers. One of the biggest things with safety is actually engaging your workforce. Safety is usually a pretty dry topic, and people could tune out very easily.
You know where?
And so what we're doing is just trying to engage them in a different way. A part of this is actually learning styles. Lots of folks in the workforce actually have like your atypical learning style. Some folks, especially behind the wheel in our industry, they need to work with their hands more. They don't like sitting in a classroom. So using something that engages that energy in a positive way is really important. Let's see if this works. So if you didn't see it, this is just some gamified footage. We do things like hazard identification over time. We give them some feedback. Again, this is like our partners' forward-facing footage. So we'll actually port this into our platform, create these engaging micro games, if you will, and we start to understand the driver at a deeper level. So it's fun, it's cool, it's engaging, it's different, it feels not so archaic. The main areas that we work in is pre-hire, new hire. We do remedial training. And something that's really important is ongoing safety training. We like to have safety touch points once a month that are shorter in duration to save time, but they're engaging. So more frequent touch points we found has been quite effective. And that's it for me. Looking forward to your guys' questions. Jonathan, am I passing it to Aakash? Thank you.
Thank you, Zechari. Appreciate that very much. And we'll be back with some questions for you. Next, we'd like to call up, please welcome Aakash from Gabriel Protects.
So Gabriel Protects, we are a technology company. We have a platform that, in 3 words, it's an emergency response tool. This emergency response tool is for any type of organization. You don't have to be an enterprise org. You can be a small size org with just 10 employees. It benefits, I guess, more or less. Oh, are we back? We good?
Almost use this. Using.
There we go. Okay. So as I was saying, we're an emergency response tool. So we have 3 components to our tool. We have software and we have hardware. What I'd like to call it's the hardware part. It's a next generation panic button. The panic button has 2-way audio and it has video as well. So when this panic button is pressed, everything on the back end of what's supposed to happen, emergency responses coming, services coming to you, someone being notified, your administrators knowing what's going on, you being able to see as soon as you click the notification what's going on in your building as an administrator, that's all capable through our platform. So we provide real-time alerts to administrators, to the security team, to your users, to your everyday employees as well. And we provide everyday employees with a virtual panic button on their phone via the app. So we kind of equip them with multiple ways of reporting so that they don't have to always pick up the phone, they don't have to call a long 1-800 number, or you don't have 25 people in the same facility calling 911 and they don't know what's going on. So who do we serve? Again, I think any vertical really. Right now, most of our customers are schools, K through 12, private charter schools, religious institutions, manufacturing facilities, and healthcare facilities. And then a little bit of a background of how Gabriel was derived, why we even founded it. 2 shootings, Pulse nightclub, and then there was one in Tel Aviv. From both of these shootings, what we learned was that communication was the missing piece, and the delay in getting notifications out to everyday people, as well as the people that are responding to the situation, was never made. And that's what causes most of these fatal situations to prolong. So just a little bit of a background about what the tool, this is what I'm mentioning. This is the virtual panic button that we provide every user with on their phone. This is our next generation panic button, which is what I like to call. It has a basic camera, 2-way audio, so if someone hits it, you can hear what's going on from your phone on the other side of it instantaneously. You're not going into your CCTV feed, rewinding, trying to find the part of what happened. You'll see it. And you get a 15-second pre-recorded clip before one of these are actually pushed. So that way, if it is a false alarm, if it is horseplay, you can shut down an emergency right away. You don't have to waste hours and a whole operational day, for that matter, doing an investigation. This is the software. Like you see here, this is what would pop up if any type of emergency were to happen in your workplace, whether it would be an active shooter, whether it is a workplace violence event. Regardless of the type of event it is, this is the dashboard that would pop up. Your floor plans are in the middle of it. We have 2-way communication in the platform, so you're not worrying about texting, you're not worrying about calling. Whoever's actually working on this situation can talk through one platform itself. Because everyone knows it's chaotic. You don't even know what to do in that situation, and you don't really have that time. So that's the 2-way communication side. And then the last part that we have here is what I like to call the who to call and the protocols. So as we know, we're always going to need to notify people. So if it's in one place, instead of looking through archaic binders of your EAPs or wherever it is, we host all of that as well here in case of emergency. So you can click on it, the link pops up, and you have that at your disposal. Again, you can be anywhere in the world. I can be on the other side of the world. I will get a notification. I will get a text message. I will be able to work with whoever is on scene directly and manage my situation and know what's going on at that time. And then the last part is law enforcement connectivity. So we have relationships with a bunch of different like PSAPs, which is the dispatch centers, where if an emergency is triggered, we would provide this alert directly to the PSAP. So they would be able to see what's going on, and responding units know what's going on. We're in the progress of expanding that scope, hopefully pretty soon. So we'll be getting it out to a lot more dispatch centers soon. But that is another capability that we do have. And we also do monitor, by the way. We have a third-party monitoring system that's always monitoring 24/7. A little bit about the product. I talked a lot, but yeah. Some highlights. You guys are probably wondering how this is tied to insurance, why I'm here, why John called me. Well, we went through an InsurTech accelerator by Lloyd's of London 2 years ago. We were vetted by Lloyd's of London. We are actually currently working with a provider where we're embedded in their ancillary policy for active assailant coverage. We're working to expand that. And we've also saved some of our customers a decent amount of money on their workplace violence cover because by implementing our technology, it's directly reducing your risk. So that's a little bit about us, a little bit about what we do, and a little bit about how we can help all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Aakash. Appreciate it. Love anything that makes it more efficient for people to work. streamlines the process. Sounds amazing. Got some more questions for you, but next in line here is David Sobel from the Sobel Group. Let's welcome David.
Good morning. As mentioned, I'm David Sobel from the Sobel Group. I'm a retired police officer, and I started the Sobel Group. I think this is our 25th year now, actually. It's hard to believe it's been that long. And we are a San Diego-based company that specializes in workplace-related investigations and security consulting. Today, we're here talking more about the security consulting and as it relates to SB 553. As part of that security consulting, we provide threat and vulnerability assessments for businesses, school districts, community college districts, universities, and anything from small to large businesses. And we developed a specialized mapping program for first responders that is called High Resolution Immersive Panoramic Mapping. One of the largest problems when there is a response from law enforcement to an incident at a workplace is a lack of knowledge about that workplace, the amount of people in the workplace, and especially the layouts of the building. So what law enforcement officers are typically used to seeing is either everything from nothing when they respond to a scene to a line drawing of a building or some descriptions from people that work at that building. If you picture a virtual tour for real estate and you multiply that, I've heard this described by 1,000, that's what we're doing, where we're actually immersing law enforcement into that building so they can see behind every wall before they enter into a room. We also embed tactical data into that system for them so they can do pre-workups on high-value assets before they would even respond. And then lastly, we provide training to workplace-related training as it relates to that security, SB 553 included, because there's a required training component for SB 553. And we custom tailor that to individual workplaces, again, from small to all the way up to a university-level type workplace. I have a lot of small print, and we're going to get to this during the questions. There's a lot of misnomers about 553 because it's a state requirement, and we have a lot of employers just trying to meet those requirements. So I've put those basics up there just to show people, even in that small print, there are a lot of basics. And we're going to go beyond that today in the question and answer portion of it. So I don't expect you all to read that right now. So that's kind of my basics for today, and we'll get to the rest in the questions.
Thank you very much, David. And last but not least, our good friend Kyle Rolf.
Morning, everyone. I know you guys can't see me just yet. I think they're working on that.
Well, we can hear you.
Okay, you guys can hear me. All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and apologies I'm not there. As was mentioned before, my wife is due to pop really any day now, even though we have still lots to do, but that's how babies work. In any case, my name is Kyle Wolf. I work with a company called Beazley. We are the largest syndicate insurance carrier out of Lloyd's of London. I'm actually somewhat local. I live out in Temecula, so only an hour and a half as opposed to 2 hours. But in any case, I am an underwriter with them, and my exclusive focus is on the active assailant space. We refer to our product as deadly weapons protection because it's not just guns that we worry about. It could be anything from what we saw in New Orleans with a truck being stolen and used maliciously to knife attacks, acid bombs, and of course guns. So we hear about guns a lot. Frankly, you turn on the news and we've become numb to it. And to that point, I'm going to share just a couple of slides, not to bore you to tears here. So give me just a second. Let's do this. All right, and hopefully everyone can see that. Great. And for those of you in the back that can't read these numbers, they're big, and they refer to the number of mass shootings that we see. According to Gun Violence Archive, they define a mass shooting as 4 or more injured or killed in one sitting. In 2021, we were dealing with a little event globally called COVID, and people were pretty upset about it to the point where we had 689 mass shootings that year. So you're at more than one a day. You're actually pretty close to 2 a day. Pretty ugly in the sense that, most people were actually confined indoors, but we really started to see a number of factors that I'll talk about in just a second. In 22 and 23 didn't really change a whole lot. So as a society, again, we are seeing violence at an unprecedented scale. It is our new reality, whether you choose to accept it or not. And in many cases, we as individuals always like to think this will happen to other people, but unfortunately, statistics beg to differ. With that being said, workplace violence specifically, so those that are dealing with this type of violence, not necessarily just out and about, but in your place of work, we're seeing that at an unprecedented clip, 4 times more likely in America than anywhere else in the country, or in the world, I should say. And in most cases, it's actually unreported. So tying this back to SB 553, there's a lot of requirements that revolve around identification of those hazards and reporting. And my company, as part of an insurance product, actually does include some resources that can be used to help. But to lay out, where these things are happening, these are just mass shootings, right? I took this picture yesterday from Gun Violence Archive. All those little red dots that are making our country look like it has, case of chicken pox. Those are the mass shootings that we've seen. Those are actually shootings, I should say, not mass shootings. But they're happening pretty much everywhere, even in states where almost nobody lives. And we just had another mass shooting this morning up in Washington that I can almost guarantee nobody in this room even heard about. So whether you're in LA, you're in Phoenix, you're in Bismarck, North Dakota, we are seeing this happen all over the place. And I'm not necessarily bringing this up in the sense of, hey, let's create a fear-mongering sort of thing. It's just more awareness, right? Despite being in some of the best communities, San Diego being, a relatively safe one, we still see things happen all the time, be it down in Chula Vista, in the Gas Lamp, here in Mission Valley. We just had a shooting event just down the street from you guys at the Handlery Hotel. So I think if you look out one of those windows, you might be able to see it. Again, it's happening, and we just have to accept it and respond to it. Okay, and just to further that point, if you again really can't see that, and I almost guarantee you can't, this slide here is just demonstrating where we're actually seeing active assailant events. Places of commerce, that big pink stripe there, making up nearly half, followed up by education. Then you've got healthcare, places of worship, residential settings, etc. All right. So what's causing these things? We've heard the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, many of us are carrying a lot of straws. And with that being said, just watch the news for about 5 minutes and you'll see social justice movements, something about a disinformation campaign or social media misinformation there. Our mental health is nowhere near as strong as it once used to be. We are becoming a lot better as a society about talking about it, but still nowhere near what we should be. We're under a new political regime. If you didn't know, been living under a rock, not just nationally, but also in some cases locally. Domestic terrorism could be anything from environmental to political base, ideological, etc. And the economy, right? Gas is not cheap. Eggs are not cheap. On and on it goes, right? So all these stressors everyone is carrying around, and we're seeing episodes of violence like we would have never expected to, 10 years ago. I believe it was a year ago, a gal, a 15-year-old killed a 14-year-old over a sauce packet at McDonald's, right? Road rage incidents are happening all the time, right? Not just having an argument, but people using weapons to illustrate their displeasure, if you will. So on and on it goes. Again, you gather nothing else. It's just we have a lot that is saddling our mental state. Okay, so from a legal perspective, OSHA, our favorite 4-letter organization here, has, once upon a time, and still to this day, required a place of employment to be free of hazards that can actually cause death or serious injury. Active shooter now being one of those recognized hazards. So as if having the worst day, month, and year on your hands isn't enough, you could be subject to a pretty serious fine. That's compounded by the fact that SB 553 came into effect as of last year, July 1st. And I know some of our other panelists will be talking about that. But in terms of the employer liability, there is a lot of training that needs to take place in terms of recognizing what potential shooters look like and how to respond to those hazards, and really making that training available and implementing safeguards. So, in terms of these litigation episodes that we're seeing, the lawsuits that are happening, there's a common phrase that's making its way out called nuclear verdicts, and they are happening all over the place, including in California, right? Recognizing sheer amounts of negligence, right, and breaches of duties of care, right? That's a couple of points that need to be addressed. We're seeing dollar amounts being doled out by insurance companies, and then when those limits are eviscerated, really, it comes down to the actual company. Tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. With the Uvalde shooting, they were demanding over $1 billion. It's a really big number and more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. But this is all to say we're dealing with an existential threat. And now for my feast, and this is my last slide, so bear with me here. Beazley came out with a product about a decade ago that decided to just go beyond insurance, right? Because insurance really sat on its heels and wasn't really doing anything to address it before something could happen or during. So instead of just doing the insurance bit, we decided to build a product based on 3 pillars. And this isn't just exclusive to deadly weapons protection. Cyber, we have a product that's built just like this. Our sexual misconduct liability, built just like this, and on we go. But starting from the beginning, on the prevention side of things, we wanted to help our insurers create a culture of safety, if you will, right? Give them all the tools and resources necessary to really recognize and understand, what their generally accepted hazards look like from a violence perspective, not just workplace violence, but from third parties as well, right? And then doing everything that we can to help them not only address that, but also reduce it, because in this case, an ounce of prevention is definitely worth a pound of cure. But let's just say the best laid plans fail. What do? What we wanted to do, and what we have done very successfully, is create a situation where once these things are unfolding, right, we as humans go into a reptilian state. It's all about self-preservation. But since we were nothing years old, we've been taught to dial a 3-digit number, 911, when an emergency happens. But who do you call after that? We wanted to become that second call, right? So when these events, unfortunate as they may be, when they happen, you can't just stop. And so being able to identify not only the proper counseling services that might be necessary, legal resources, investigation, potential for additional security, on and on it goes. That is what we do in the response aspects, right? Becoming that second phone call, quarterbacking the situation, if you will, and really helping you get through what would arguably be the worst period of your personal life as well as your business's life, right? And then we get into the insurance component. In addition to just providing liability, not only for first and third parties, we also provide physical damage and business interruption. And by way of endorsement, we could also do things like loss of attraction, loss of tuition, and some other new and very cool enhancements coming soon. All right, and we'll talk more about how this can play into your individual business's needs in the Q&A here in just a little bit. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. These numbers are kind of scary to see, but very educational, and thanks for sharing. So we're going to get right to some of the questions here that we kind of came up with initially for the panel. We'd love to have everyone interact. We're going to kind of get them started with these questions. We're going to start with Zechari here. I think we all know distraction can be a huge problem, right? There's, million things going on in our life, as we're, trying to get through it. There's social media, there's phones, there's, little computers in our hand, everyone's hands, distracting when we're trying to get a job done. How do you feel that can be measured, and then what causes it, in your opinion?
Yeah, so distraction is an epidemic these days. It's kind of on par where drunk driving was in like the early 90s. Folks like behavior is changing, their attention spans are changing with the advent of smartphone technologies. People are on their phones more than ever. So just kind of unpack what's going on with distraction. Essentially, what a distraction is when something is competing for your attention. So imagine you have a primary task that you're doing. A distraction would be a secondary task that is pulling your attention away from that primary task. You only have a limited amount of attention resources that you have. So that secondary task is actually pulling resources away from the first. And there's a fallacy when people talk about multitasking. You cannot multitask. You could only task switch. So every time you switch tasks from maybe a primary task of driving to a secondary task, the distraction, which say it's a phone, there's a cost every time you switch back and forth. And each distraction is different in severity. So if it's a very minor distraction, maybe a sharp noise, it doesn't pull your attention resources too much. But if you're texting on a phone, it's really pulling your attention from the road, and there's a greater cost. So not all distractions are the same. Distractions come in many, many forms. There's your mind wandering. A lot of people only think about the phone, but when you kind of tune out and start to think about, did I feed the dog? Is my wife mad at me? Did I pay the bills? Taxes are coming up. You start to take your attention off of the road. And so there's also manual distractions, physical distractions if you're eating on the road or fiddling with the radio. So it's very important to first understand what's going on sort of between the ears. Can it be measured? Distraction can be measured cognitively. Essentially what we do is see how they perform when a distractor is not present and then introduce a distractor and see what the cost is. We're actually doing a study with the University of Iowa and essentially looking at individuals' distractibility and how that compares to their performance on the road. It shows that if we measure someone's distractibility, they're more likely to have an accident and have tickets in the last 5 years. So it can be measured. Sort of the next step, at least in the workplace, is creating an understanding of the impact of distraction. And what I see a lot of times is these big numbers, but a lot of folks can't really internalize what these numbers mean. Like, you look at your phone and you go 3 football fields or 90 yards, and people are like, oh, that sounds bad. But if you could put it into context of you're going through an intersection that can't have a school bus, that's a little better. Or showing a video, it kind of internalizes it a little bit more. The next steps in what we're doing is educating and building an awareness on an individual's distractibility. My distractibility would be different than yours or yours. And so once we have an awareness of our own distractibility, we could start to understand when we are distracted. So if we can understand when we're distracted, that feeling of I'm on the road, I'm feeling distracted, we could start to re-lock in. And that's kind of what we're building next. There's some great tools out there to measure or prevent distraction. There's some apps like Lifesaver Mobile that will kind of lock your phone and have limited access while you're driving. There's telematics that will measure how much you're using your phone while driving. Cambridge Mobile Telematics is one. And there's also inward-facing dash cameras that could actually capture when the driver's actually using their phone. But something to kind of take away from this, if we have our drivers be safe and we know they're not distracted through whatever measures we implement, they're driving in a sea of distracted drivers. Most of us probably drove here today. Even if you're not distracted, the person to the left or right of you, odds are one of them's distracted. If you're distracted while driving, it is more unpredictable. So it's really paramount that our drivers understand what's going on in the community and how distraction affects themselves. So,
Awesome. Thank you. Could pass it to Aakash here. So is it not great to tell someone you're a multitasker? That's not a good thing?
I think the point
Multitasking? Yeah. That means you're not focused on anything? Okay. We're going to... Yeah. Okay, we're going to skip right. We got more questions for you later, I think, but I'm going to get to Aakash here. So when we kind of came up with, how does Gabriel's technology fit the new workplace violence. You talked about a little bit of the workplace violence prevention law that requires employers with more than 10 employees to put steps into place that prevents the risk of a workplace violence situation. I know you talked a little about it, but
Yeah.
go more depth.
Yeah, I definitely talked a little about it. David's going to go into more with the SB 553 and what it is, so I don't want to overstep on that end. But part of SB 553, you need clear reporting procedures, emergency response protocols, and employee training. So how our technology helps with that is we provide instant situational alerts and awareness, like how I was explaining earlier. You get real-time alerts, you can communicate in a two-way fashion, and you have immediate visibility into the developing situation. Also, unlike traditional mass messaging platforms, this is two-way communication. So you can also understand not just from the people that are reporting it, but from first responders, from your internal security team, and your administrators as to what's going on, and you've reduced confusion at that point. And last but not least, the reporting and compliance. So everything that I showed there, if our system is implemented, PDF reports are able to be downloaded, timestamps. So on the compliance end, on the reporting front, you would have everything in one document, be able to be exported, including video clips if needed. So it's just not, I like to say it's not a response tool. We like to be considered it. Our goal is to be, how can we prevent workplace violence, right? And our solution kind of helps prevent it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Aakash. Question for David. So with you talked a little bit about that 360 specialized mapping that you guys do. How does that mapping get into the hands of first responders, or how do they use that mapping in moment of an incident?
It's a great question. One of the roadblocks that we ran into in developing this is for law enforcement to have something such as this mapping, it has to be on their own internal servers. It cannot be on a cloud, and that's based on federal law. So we had to develop this so the client, which is the business or the school, gets a copy of it, so to speak, that is actually built as an intranet piece. It is not a piece of software. There's no specialized equipment required. So anybody that has access to the servers and is given permission can view this mapping. The same works with law enforcement. It goes on their servers. We add additional tactical data to their system that the employers do not see because it's proprietary to that law enforcement agency. And then most agencies we work with will make it available to all officers via their mobile dispatch terminals in their vehicles. And then tactical teams can actually pull it up on their tablets as they're entering into a building and see, again, what they're essentially going into before they go in.
So a little bit of a heads up and knowing how to strategize once they're on scene.
Yes, and obviously depends on the circumstances we all see in the news. If you have an active assailant or an active situation, there may not be time or a need for them to be pulling that up right away. However, their dispatchers or their watch commanders can pull that up and be giving them instructions as they are moving very quickly to neutralize the assailant. What people don't realize is afterward, you have to clear buildings. You may also have medevac situations or hostage situations. And again, the more information law enforcement has could lead to saving lives in those situations.
Wonderful, thank you. And can you touch a little bit on one of your slides about the different requirements for SB 553?
One of the big misnomers that we keep seeing when we're called for the training is that this idea that it's 10 people or more in a business. If your business is open to the public, you are required to adhere to SB 553, regardless of the number of employees. So I think out of all of the misunderstandings that we're seeing related to the requirements, that's the largest one.
Thank you very much, David. Now I'd like to toss it over to Kyle, and then we'll open it up to you guys. Kyle, one of the questions that you and I talked about when we were preparing for this was talking about, well, if you're an employer and I already have GL coverage, why would I need additional active shooter or assailant coverage? And how does that coverage go beyond what I already have?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one I get all the time. And frankly, the landscape has been evolving on the insurance side of things. So on the hospitality side of things, and education, even some religious spaces, we're seeing more exclusions come into place. But even if you don't have an exclusion, right, you have that proverbial gray area. Anybody that's ever filed a claim, which I would hope at that office you're in, there's probably a handful of people that have done that. Until that happens, the geo carrier is very rarely going to be proactive, right? And as I was explaining before, there's a lot that needs to happen in the moment of the actual incident and the preceding days and weeks, right? And until that claim is filed, which in some cases, in what we see on the carrier side, is some claimants waiting until the statute of limitations is all but expired, and then they file their claim. Now, why that's a problem is that when you go in front of a jury of your peers, if it looks as though the insured and or the insurance company did absolutely nothing to really help the victims and survivors really get through this very difficult time, right? Be it providing that medical expense cover, getting them the necessary mental help they may need, on and on it goes. If you do nothing from a perception standpoint, that is very, very bad. And despite the thinking that our legal system is perfect, there's a lot of opinion that gets weighed into it there. And so there's a huge aspect that needs to be addressed in that sense. And the general liability doesn't actually cover employees, because that's normally a work comp situation there. And in some cases, work comp isn't totally perfect. GL isn't going to be doing anything to assist with not only the damage of your property, but also the business interruption aspect that is very real for many people. Despite some businesses being a bit resilient, in many cases after a pretty traumatic event, they're going to be closed for a few days, and there's a very real cost with that, right? And then there's a lot of ambiguity in the GL space. And frankly, with our cover and some others that are in the marketplace, having that primary and affirmative nature leaves no doubt, right? In terms of there's cover, let's get to work on it, and let's help minimize the impacts, not just financial, but from a PR perspective, and just doing the right thing, right? It's also very important to consider.
Kyle, we're going to let you go. Please keep us posted. Thank you for joining us. And please, a round of applause for our panelists. Please use the QR codes to get their contact. We'll be sending you copies of the slides with their contact as well. I can't thank you all enough for being here. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all safe workplaces and help us make that impact. God bless. Thank you very much.
Chris.